The Vraxi fleet came out of nowhere. One moment, the sky above Kepler 7 was empty. The next moment, 17 warships hung in the darkness like metal mountains, blocking out the stars. The mining colony's alarms screamed to life, and every screen in every building switched to an emergency broadcast. Linda Palmer did not see any of it. She was underground in Tunnel 6, running a drill that shook her bones and filled her ears with thunder. Her shift had started 14 hours ago. She had picked up an extra 4 hours because the rent was due and Ben needed medicine. She was so tired that her hands moved on their own. Her mind floated somewhere far away, thinking about dinner. She had frozen vegetables at home. Maybe some rice. The kids would complain, but they would eat it. When her supervisor came running down the tunnel, waving his arms and shouting, Linda did not understand him at first. The words did not make sense. Aliens. Ships. Everyone get to the shelters. She dropped her drill and ran above ground. The colony had become chaos. People filled the streets, some running toward the shelters, others just standing and staring at the sky. Children cried. Dogs barked. The emergency sirens would not stop. Linda pushed through the crowd. Her housing unit was on the other side of the colony, and her children were there alone. Danny was 12. He was watching his younger siblings like he always did when Linda worked late. He was a good boy, but he was still just a boy. She ran faster. On every public screen, a face appeared. It was not human. The creature had gray skin stretched tight over a skull that was too long and too narrow. Its eyes were black and empty, like holes cut into paper. When it spoke, its voice was calm and cold. Humans of this world. I am Commander Vrax of the Vraxi Dominion. Your species has built a colony on territory that belongs to us. This is a violation of our ancient claims. However, we are not without honor. We will give you a chance to keep what you have built. Linda did not stop running, but she listened. By the laws of our people, territorial disputes are settled through combat. Single combat. Your colony will choose a champion. Our champion will face yours at dawn. If your champion wins, we will leave this world forever. If our champion wins, this colony and everyone in it belongs to us. The screens flickered, and a new image appeared. Linda stopped running. Everyone stopped running. The creature on the screen was a nightmare made real. It stood 9 feet tall, with scales the color of dried blood covering its entire body. Its arms were too long, ending in claws that curved like butcher's knives. Its mouth was open, showing rows of teeth that went back into its throat like a shark. Its eyes glowed with a faint orange light. And Linda knew somehow that those eyes could see in the dark, could see through walls, could see the heat of living bodies trying to hide. This is Gorthax, the Vraxi commander said. He has been our champion for 200 years. He has never been defeated. He has killed warriors from 97 different species. He is the greatest predator our world has ever produced. The creature on the screen moved. It was fast. Faster than something that big should ever be. It turned its head and looked directly at the camera, and Linda felt like it was looking at her. You have 24 hours to choose your champion. If you do not choose, Gorthax will enter your colony and select one himself. Anyone he faces will be considered your representative. Choose wisely. The screens went dark. Linda started running again. When she reached her housing unit, she slammed through the door and found her children huddled on the couch. Danny had his arms around Sophie and Ben, holding them tight. Sophie was crying quietly. Ben was asleep in Danny's lap, his forehead shiny with fever sweat. "Mom," Danny said. His voice was shaking, but he was trying so hard to be brave. "Mom, what's happening?" Linda dropped to her knees in front of them. She pulled all 3 of her children into her arms and held them close. She could feel their hearts beating against her chest. She could feel Ben's fever burning through his shirt. "It's okay," she said. The words came out automatically. "It's okay. I'm here now. Everything is going to be okay." She did not believe it. But that was what Mother said. Across the colony, the council was meeting in the administration building. Director Greg Howard stood at the head of the table, his face gray with fear. Around him sat the colony's leaders: engineers, scientists, doctors, miners, good people, brave people, but not soldiers. "We have to contact Earth," one of them said. "Call for military support." "Earth is 8 months away," Howard replied. "We have 24 hours. Then we negotiate. We offer them something else: resources, technology, anything. They don't want resources. They want blood. Their entire culture is built around combat. This is a game to them." The room fell silent. "So what do we do?" someone asked. "Who do we send?" No one answered. Howard looked around the table at faces he had known for years. These were mining engineers and maintenance workers, teachers and cooks. They had come to Kepler-7 to build a new life, not to fight monsters. "I'll go," he said finally. "I'm the director. It should be me." "You're 63 years old," the chief engineer said quietly. "That thing will kill you in seconds. It will kill any of us in seconds. At least this way, I can buy time. Maybe some people can escape." Before anyone could respond, the screens in the room flickered to life. The Vraxi commander appeared again, his dead eyes staring at nothing. "Humans, we have reconsidered our terms. Waiting is boring. At dawn, we will release Gorthax into your residential sector. He will hunt. Whoever he finds first will be your champion. This will be more entertaining." The screen went dark. Howard felt his blood turn to ice. The residential sector, where the families lived, where the children were. He grabbed his communicator. "All security personnel, get to the residential sector now. Start evacuations. Get everyone out." But even as he gave the order, he knew it was hopeless. There were not enough shuttles. Not enough time. Not enough anything. In her small housing unit, Linda held her sleeping son and listened to the chaos outside. People were screaming. Footsteps thundered past her door. Someone was crying. She looked at Ben's flushed face, at Sophie's tear-streaked cheeks, at Danny's terrified eyes. She could not run. Ben was too sick to move. The medical bay was across the colony, and the streets were not safe. She had to stay here. She had to hide and hope the monster passed them by. She stood up slowly. Her body ached from 14 hours of drilling. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep. Her hands were shaking, but she walked to the kitchen and opened the drawer. She took out the biggest knife she owned. Then she picked up the heavy pipe wrench from under the sink. She did not know how to fight. She had never been in a fight in her life. She was 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighed 130 pounds. She was a mining colony worker and a single mother, and she was so tired she could barely stand. But if that thing came through her door, she was going to make it pay for every step it took toward her children. She stood in the hallway and waited for dawn. Dawn came too fast that Linda had not slept. She had spent the night moving furniture in front of the door, checking on her children, and listening to the sounds outside. The screaming had stopped hours ago. Now there was only silence, and that was worse. Ben's fever had not broken. He lay on the couch with a wet cloth on his forehead, his small chest rising and falling too quickly. Sophie sat next to him, holding his hand. Danny stood by the window, watching the empty street outside. "Mom," he whispered, "something's happening." Linda walked to the window and looked out. The sky was turning gray with early morning light. The street was empty. Every door was closed. Every window was dark. The whole colony was holding its breath. Then she heard it. A deep, heavy sound, like thunder rolling across the ground. But it was not thunder. It was footsteps on the colony's main screen. The Vraxi commander appeared one final time. The hunt begins. The screen went dark, somewhere on the other side of the colony. Gorthax had been released. Linda moved away from the window. She picked up her knife and her wrench. She stood in the hallway between the front door and the room where her children waited. Minutes passed. The footsteps grew louder, then softer, then louder again. Gorthax was moving through the colony, searching, hunting. Through the thin walls, Linda heard other sounds. Doors breaking, people screaming, then silence. Always silence after. She gripped her weapons tighter and tried not to shake. On the other side of the residential sector, 3 colony security guards had set up a defensive position at a major intersection. They had stun batons and shock pistols. They were not soldiers, but they were brave. They had volunteered to slow the creature down while families escaped. Gorthax found them first. The creature came around the corner like a nightmare come to life. He moved on all 4s when he wanted to go fast, his claws tearing grooves in the metal floor. His scales scraped against the walls as he passed. His breath came out in clouds of hot vapor. The guards opened fire. The shock pistols hit Gorthax directly in the chest. Blue electricity crawled across his scales. He stopped for a moment, tilting his head like he was curious about the sensation. Then he smiled. He moved so fast that the guards did not even have time to scream. One moment he was 10 meters away. The next moment he was among them, his claws cutting through the air like swords. It was over in 3 seconds. Gorthax stood in the intersection, surrounded by blood, and lifted his head. He breathed in deeply through slits in his skull that served as nostrils. He was tasting the air, reading the scents like a book. There, that way. Small bodies, fast heartbeats. Fear. Children. He started walking. In the Vraxi command ship. Officers watched the hunt through cameras placed throughout the colony. They made comments and laughed. Some of them were placing bets on how long the colony would last. "Look at them run," one officer said. "Like insects. Do they really think they can hide from Gorthax? They sent guards with electric sticks," another laughed. "Electric sticks? Against the greatest hunter our world has ever known." Commander Vrax watched in silence. He was not laughing. He had seen enough hunts to know that the killing was the boring part. The interesting part was finding out what a species was made of. What they did when there was no hope left. So far, the humans were disappointing. They ran, they hid, they screamed, just like all the others. He hoped at least one of them would try to fight. It would make better entertainment. Linda heard the footsteps, getting closer. She had moved her children into the bathroom at the back of the unit. It was the smallest room with only one door. She had pushed a heavy cabinet in front of that door. "Stay quiet," she told them. "No matter what you hear, stay quiet and don't come out." Danny looked at her with eyes that were too old for his face. "Mom, what are you going to do?" "I'm going to keep you safe." She hugged each of them. She kissed Ben's burning forehead. She held Sophie's face in her hands and told her she loved her. She looked Danny in the eyes and made him promise to take care of his brother and sister. Then she walked out and closed the bathroom door behind her. She stood in the hallway with her knife and her wrench. Her hands were shaking so badly that she could barely hold them. Her heart was beating so hard that she could hear it in her ears. The footsteps stopped. Outside her front door. Linda held her breath. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then she heard something that made her blood freeze. Breathing. Deep. Wet. Heavy breathing. Right on the other side of the door. The creature was there. It was smelling the air. It was finding them. Then the door exploded inward. Gorthax had to duck to fit through the doorway. He filled the entrance completely, blocking out the light from outside. His scales gleamed in the dim emergency lighting. His eyes glowed like hot coals. He saw Linda, standing in the hallway, small, tired, shaking. He tilted his head. On the Vraxi command ship, officers leaned forward to watch. This was the moment they loved. The moment when prey realized there was no escape. "Look at her," one of them said. "She can barely stand." "What is she holding?" "A kitchen tool." "The humans sent a cook to fight Garthax?" Another laughed. "This will be over in seconds." Commander Vrax said nothing. He was watching the woman's eyes. Garthax took a step forward. The floor shook under his weight. He breathed in deeply, tasting her fear. It was sweet and strong, like all prey. But there was something else there too. Something he did not recognize. He took another step. Linda did not run. He stopped. This was strange. Prey always ran. Prey always tried to escape, even when there was nowhere to go. It was instinct. It was nature. But this small creature just stood there, blocking the hallway, holding her little weapons. From somewhere behind her, deeper in the unit, Garthax heard something that made his mouth water. Heartbeats. Small, fast heartbeats. Young ones. Perfect prey. Easy meat. He tried to move past the woman. She stepped in front of him. He tried to go around her. She moved to block him. He stopped again. He looked down at her with his glowing eyes. "Move," he said. His voice was like rocks grinding together. "You cannot stop me. Move, and I will make your death quick." Linda looked up at the monster that filled her home. She looked at his claws and his teeth and his terrible burning eyes. She felt the heat coming off his body, smelled his breath like rotting meat. She was so scared that she thought she might faint. She was so tired that her legs felt like water. She knew that she could not win this fight. She knew that she was going to die. But her children were behind her. Her babies were in that bathroom, counting on her to protect them. And if she moved, if she stepped aside, the monster would walk right past her and tear them apart. So she raised her knife. "No," she said. Her voice cracked. Her hand shook. "No, you don't touch them." Garthax stared at her for a long moment. Then his mouth split open in something that might have been a smile. "Interesting," he said, and he attacked. Garthax moved like lightning. One moment, he was standing in the doorway. The next moment, his claw was cutting through the air toward Linda's head. He had killed 1,000 creatures with this attack. None of them had ever seen it coming. But Linda was not standing where she had been. She had dropped to the floor the instant he moved, throwing herself flat against the ground. His claw passed through empty air where her neck had been half a second before. Garthax paused. That was unexpected. Linda did not think about what she did next. Her body moved on its own, driven by something older and deeper than thought. She rolled forward, between his legs, and stabbed upward with her knife. The blade hit the underside of his thigh, where the scales were thinner. It did not go deep. Maybe an inch, but it went in. Garthax felt pain for the first time in decades. He roared and spun around, his tail sweeping the air. It caught Linda across the back and threw her into the wall. She hit hard and felt something crack in her chest. The world went white for a moment on the Vraxi command ship. The laughter stopped. Commander Vrax leaned forward in his seat. "Replay that," he ordered. "Slow it down." The officers did as he asked. They watched the woman drop beneath Garthax's killing strike. They watched her roll forward and drive her little knife into his leg. They watched her draw first blood from a champion who had not bled in 90 years. "Lucky," one officer said. "She got lucky." Vrax did not reply. He was watching the screens, waiting to see what would happen next. In the small housing unit, Linda was trying to breathe. Every breath sent fire through her chest. Her ribs were broken. Maybe more than one. She could taste blood in her mouth. Get up, she thought. Get up, get up. She grabbed the wall and pulled herself to her feet. Gorthax watched her rise. He looked down at his leg, where dark blood was leaking from a small wound. Then he looked back at her. "You hurt me," he said. There was something in his voice that had not been there before. Not anger, not pain. Something like interest. Linda said nothing. She could not waste breath on words. She needed every bit of air she could get. Gorthax took a step toward her, then another. He moved slowly now, carefully. He was not playing anymore. "I have hunted warriors who trained their whole lives to fight me," he said. "Champions, killers, the best their worlds had to offer. None of them ever drew my blood." Linda backed away. She kept her knife up, her wrench ready. Her hands were shaking worse than before. "What are you?" Gorthax asked. From the bathroom behind her, Linda heard Sophie crying. The sound cut through her fear like a blade. Her baby was scared. Her baby needed her. "I'm their mother," she said. Gorthax tilted his head. "Mother? This word means parent, breeder?" "It means I made them," Linda said. "I grew them inside my body. I fed them and held them and sang to them when they cried. I stayed awake with them when they were sick. I worked myself half to death to give them a good life." She took a step forward. Gorthax did not move. "It means they're mine," she said. "And you can't have them." Gorthax was still for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was an ugly sound, like bones breaking. "Breeders do not fight," he said. "Breeders run. Breeders hide. This is the law of nature. The strong hunt. The weak breed. You are weak. You should run." "I can't," Linda said simply. "Then you will die." He attacked again. This time Linda was not fast enough. His claw caught her across the shoulder, cutting through her shirt and into her flesh. She screamed and staggered backward. Blood ran down her arm in hot streams, but she did not fall. She swung her wrench at his face. He caught it in his hand and ripped it away from her. She stabbed at his eyes with her knife. He blocked the strike with his arm, and the blade snapped off at the handle. She was empty-handed now, bleeding, broken. Gorthax grabbed her by the throat and lifted her off the ground. "Enough," he said. "This game is over." Linda felt his claws pressing into her neck. She could not breathe. The world was going dark around the edges. She could see his face so close to hers, his burning eyes, his endless teeth. She thought about her children. Danny, trying so hard to be strong. Sophie, who loved butterflies and the color purple. Ben, her sweet baby boy, fighting his fever in the bathroom just a few steps away. She was not going to see them grow up. She was not going to see Danny graduate, or walk Sophie down the aisle, or teach Ben to ride a bike. She was going to die here, in this hallway, and the monster was going to walk past her body and take her babies. Something changed inside. Linda, something woke up. The fear did not go away. The pain did not stop. But underneath all of it, something else rose up. Something ancient and terrible and absolutely unbreakable. She looked Gorthax in the eyes, and she smiled. Then she reached up with both hands, grabbed his wrist, and sank her teeth into the soft skin between his scales. She bit down as hard as she could. She felt his blood fill her mouth, hot and bitter. She heard him roar in surprise and pain. His grip loosened for just a moment. Linda twisted her body and kicked off his chest. She fell to the floor, gasping for air. Blood was pouring from her wounds. She could barely see. She could barely move, but she was free. She crawled toward the kitchen. Behind her, She heard Gorthax cursing in his own language. She heard his heavy footsteps coming after her. She reached under the cabinet and found what she was looking for. A bottle of industrial cleaning solution, strong enough to strip paint off metal. Gort HAX grabbed her ankle and dragged her backward. Linda spun around and threw the open bottle in his face. The chemicals hit his eyes and mouth. He screamed. It was the first time she had heard real pain in his voice. He stumbled backward, clawing at his face, trying to wipe the burning liquid away. Linda did not stop. She grabbed a broken piece of the cabinet and swung it at his head. She kicked him in the wounded leg. She threw everything she could reach at him. She was not trying to win. She knew she could not win. She was trying to hurt him. She was trying to make him remember her. She was trying to make sure that even if he killed her, he would never forget the price she made him pay. Gorthax finally caught her again. He slammed her against the floor so hard that she heard something else break inside her body. He stood over her, one foot on her chest, his burned eyes weeping dark fluid. "What are you?" he demanded again. His voice was shaking now. "What are you?" Linda looked up at him through eyes that could barely focus. She smiled again. Her teeth were red with blood. "I told you," she whispered. "I'm their mother." Then she reached up and drove her broken knife handle into his ear. Gorthax screamed louder than before. He staggered away from her, clutching the side of his head. Dark blood poured between his fingers. Linda tried to stand. Her legs would not hold her. She crawled instead, pulling herself toward the bathroom door, toward her children. She did not know if she was dying. She did not care. She just needed to reach that door. She just needed to touch it one more time. Behind her, Gorthax crashed into the wall. He was blind in one eye now, half deaf, burning with chemicals. He was the greatest predator his world had ever known. And he was being destroyed by a creature who weighed less than one of his arms. He did not understand. He could not understand. On the Vraxi command ship, Commander Vrax sat in absolute silence. Around him, his officers stared at their screens with something that looked very much like fear. "What is she?" one of them whispered. Vrax did not answer. He was starting to think that the answer might be something the Vraxi were not ready to hear. Linda's fingers touched the bathroom door. She could hear her children crying on the other side. Danny was telling them to stay back. Sophie was calling for her mother. Ben was awake now, sobbing in fear. "I'm here," Linda tried to say, but her voice would not work. Her throat was damaged from Gorthax's grip. Blood was leaking from her mouth. Behind her, she heard the monster recovering. His breath was ragged and wet. He was hurt, maybe badly hurt, but he was not dead. And Linda could not move anymore. She rolled over onto her back so she could see him coming. Gorthax looked terrible. One eye was swollen shut, weeping dark fluid. The side of his head was covered in blood from the knife wound. His scales were streaked with the chemicals she had thrown in his face. He was limping on his wounded leg, but he was still standing. And she was not. He walked toward her slowly. Each step shook the floor. Each breath rattled in his chest. 200 years, he said. His voice was rough and broken. "I have hunted for 200 years. I have faced the greatest warriors the galaxy has ever known. None of them did this to me." He stopped and looked down at her. "You are not a warrior. You have no training, no weapons, no armor. You are soft and weak and slow." He tilted his head. "How are you still alive?" Linda coughed. Blood splattered on the floor. "I don't know," she whispered. "I just need to be." Gorthax stood there for a long moment. His one good eye studied her face. She was dying. He could smell it. Her heart was failing. Her lungs were filling with blood. She had minutes left, maybe less, but she was still looking at him, still watching him. still putting herself between him and that door. "Your young will die anyway," he said. "You have failed. Why do you keep fighting?" Linda managed to laugh. It hurt so badly the tears ran down her face, but she laughed anyway. "That's not how it works," she said. "You don't understand. You'll never understand. Explain it to me." Linda was quiet for a moment. She was trying to find the strength to speak. Every word felt like lifting a mountain. "When I look at them," she said finally, "I don't see what they are. I see what they could be. Every good thing they might do. Every person they might help. Every life they might touch." She coughed again. "I see forever." Gorthak said nothing. "I'm going to die," Linda said. "I know that. But as long as I'm breathing, you're looking at me. You're fighting me. You're not touching them." She smiled with bloody teeth. "Every second I buy them is worth it. Every single second." From the bathroom, Sophie cried out, "Mommy! Mommy, please!" Something shifted in Linda's face. Her eyes changed. The light came back into them. "That's my girl," she whispered. "I'm coming, baby. I'm coming." And she started to get up. Gord HAX watched in disbelief. Her body was broken. Her bones were shattered. By every law of nature, she should be dead. But she was rising anyway, climbing up the wall, pulling herself onto legs that should not work. "That's impossible," he said. Linda did not answer. She did not have breath to waste. She just kept climbing, kept pulling, kept rising. On the Vraxi command ship, Commander Vrax stood up from his chair. He walked closer to the screen, his black eyes wide. "She's standing up," one of his officers said. His voice was shaking. "She shouldn't be able to stand. The damage to her body, I can see," Vrax said quietly. "What is she?" Vrax did not answer. He was thinking about something his teachers had told him long ago. Every species has a breaking point, they had said. A moment when the body fails, when the spirit gives up, when the prey accepts death. Find that point, and victory is yours. The Vraxi had never found a species without a breaking point. Until now. In the housing unit, Linda was on her feet. She was swaying. She was barely conscious, but she was standing. Gorthax looked at her for a long moment. Then he did something he had never done before in 200 years of hunting. He took a step backward. "What are you?" he asked for the third time. His voice was different now. There was something in it that sounded almost like fear. Linda picked up a piece of broken metal from the floor. It was not much of a weapon. It was better than nothing. "I already told you," she said. "Why won't you listen?" Gorthax made his decision. He was done playing. He was done testing. This creature was dangerous in a way he did not understand, and he needed to end this now. He lunged forward, claws extended, mouth open wide. Linda moved. She did not move fast. She was not capable of fast anymore. But she moved in the direction Gorthax did not expect. Instead of backing away, she stepped forward into his attack. His claws cut across her back, leaving deep wounds. But she was inside his reach now, pressed against his chest. Too close for him to grab. She drove the metal shard into his other eye. Gorthax screamed. It was a terrible sound, full of pain and rage and something else. Something that sounded almost like fear. He threw her away from him and crashed backward into the wall. He could not see. Both eyes were destroyed. He was blind. He swung his claws wildly, trying to find her. His attacks hit nothing but air and furniture. He roared and thrashed, smashing everything around him. Linda lay on the floor where she had fallen. She could not move anymore. She had nothing left. But she could see. She could see the monster stumbling, blind and bleeding and afraid. She had done it. She had actually done it. Gorthax crashed through the wall of the housing unit and fell into the street outside. He tried to stand and fell again. His body was failing. The chemicals were still burning inside him. The wounds were too deep. He lay there in the street, breathing hard, blood pooling around him. "Help me," he said. It was broadcast to the Vraxi ship, to his commanders, to his people. "Send help. I need medical attention." Commander Vrax looked at his officers. None of them moved. "Sir," one of them said quietly. "What do we do?" Vrax was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. "Send a medical team. Retrieve Gorthax." He paused. "And send a message to the colony." "What message, sir?" Vrax looked at the screen, at the broken monster lying in the street, at the small housing unit where a dying woman had done the impossible. "Tell them. The challenge is over. Tell them they have won." In the housing unit, Linda heard the message come through on the emergency broadcast. She did not understand it at first. The words did not make sense. "One? One?" Then Danny broke down the bathroom door and came running out. He fell to his knees beside her, tears streaming down his face. "Mom! Mom, can you hear me? Help is coming. They said help is coming." Linda looked up at her son. He was so young, so scared, so brave. "Are your brother and sister okay?" she asked. "They're fine, Mom. They're fine. Sophie is getting Ben. Everyone is okay." Linda closed her eyes. Her body was broken. Her blood was all over the floor. But her children were safe. "Good," she whispered. "That's good." Then everything went dark. Linda woke up in the medical bay 4 days later. The first thing she saw was white ceiling tiles. The second thing she saw was Danny, asleep in a chair beside her bed. The third thing she saw was Sophie and Ben, curled up together on a small cot in the corner. She tried to move. Pain shot through her entire body. She gasped, and the sound woke Danny instantly. "Mom!" He jumped up and grabbed her hand. "Mom, you're awake. Doctor. Doctor, she's awake." The next hour was chaos. Doctors and nurses rushed in and out. Machines beeped and hummed. People asked her questions, shined lights in her eyes, checked her bandages. Through it all, Linda kept looking at her children. They were alive. They were healthy. They were here. That was all that mattered. Finally, the doctors left them alone. Sophie climbed onto the bed, very carefully, and curled up against Linda's good side. Ben sat in Danny's lap, sucking his thumb. His fever had broken 2 days ago. He was going to be fine. "What happened?" Linda asked. Her voice was rough from the breathing tube they had taken out that morning. Danny told her everything. The Vraxi had withdrawn their claim. Their ships had left orbit. A delegation was coming to talk about peace. And Gorthax had survived. He was on one of the Vraxi ships, recovering from his wounds. He had refused to speak to anyone except his doctors. When his officers asked him what had happened, he would only say one thing: "I was beaten by something I do not understand." Linda closed her eyes. She did not remember much of the fight. Just pieces. The fear, the pain, the sound of her children crying behind that door. "Mom," Danny said quietly, "you saved us. You beat their monster." "I didn't beat anything," Linda said. I couldn't let him past me. That's all." Sophie looked up at her with wide eyes. "The news people say you're a hero. They say you're the strongest person in the whole colony." Linda laughed. It hurt, but she laughed anyway. "I'm not strong, baby. I'm just stubborn." A week later, Linda was still in the medical bay, but she could sit up now. The doctors said she would need months of recovery. Some of the damage might never heal completely. She would have scars for the rest of her life. She did not care about any of that. What she cared about was the visitor who arrived that morning. a tall, gray-skinned creature with black eyes and a long, narrow skull. Commander Vrax himself. He came alone, without guards or officers. He stood at the door of her room and asked permission to enter. "Come in," Linda said. Vrax walked to her bedside. He looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he lowered himself to one knee. "I have come to offer my respect," he said, "and my apology." Linda did not know what to say. She stayed quiet and let him continue. "My people have studied humans for many years. We thought we understood your species. You are soft. You are weak. You are short-lived. By every measure we use, you should be prey, not predators." He paused. His black eyes were unreadable. We were wrong. He rose to his feet and stood at attention. "In our culture, we measure warriors by what they fight for. Our champions fight for glory, for honor, for the right to call themselves the strongest. These are great things. We have built an empire on them." He looked at Linda directly. "But you fight for something else. Something we have no word for. Gorthax told me what you said to him. About your children. About seeing forever when you look at them." Vrax was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer. "The Vraxi raise our young in training camps. We do not know our parents. We do not remember being held or sung to. We are taken from the egg and taught to fight." He paused. "Perhaps that is why we could not understand what you are." Linda thought about that. She thought about what it must be like to grow up without a mother's love. Without someone who would die for you without thinking. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. Vrax tilted his head. "You are sorry? For what?" "That you grew up that way. That your people don't know what it feels like to be loved like that." Vrax stared at her. For a long moment, he did not move or speak. Then, he did something that Linda would think about for the rest of her life. The Vraxi commander smiled. It was a strange expression on his alien face, but it was real. "Perhaps," he said, "that is something we could learn from your species." He bowed deeply. "The Vraxi High Council has made a decision. Humanity is not to be conquered. You are not to be hunted. You are not to be challenged." He straightened and looked her in the eye. "You are to be respected. And if you will have us befriended." Linda did not know what to say. She was a mining colony worker, a single mother. She was the last person who should be making decisions for all of humanity. But she knew what she wanted to say. "I think we'd like that," she said. "But you should probably talk to someone more important than me." Vrax shook his head. "There is no one more important than you. You are the one who taught us what humans truly are. Not your soldiers. Not your leaders. You." He walked to the door and stopped. "Get well, Linda Palmer. I hope we will meet again." Then he was gone. That night, Linda's children came to visit again. Ben had brought her a picture he had drawn. It was supposed to be their family, but the people looked more like colorful blobs with legs. Sophie had brought a purple flower she had picked from the colony garden. Danny had brought himself, which was all Linda really wanted anyway. They sat together in the small hospital room, talking about nothing important. School, food, whether the colony would get a new playground, now that they were going to have alien friends. Linda listened to them and smiled. Her body hurt. She was exhausted. She would carry these scars forever, but her children were alive and happy and safe. They would grow up. They would have lives full of joy and sorrow and everything in between. They would make mistakes and learn from them. They would love and be loved. They would have forever. And that made every wound worth it. Later that night, after the nurses had shooed the children back to their temporary housing, Linda lay alone in her bed. She stared at the ceiling and thought about everything that had happened. She was not a warrior. She was not a hero. She was just a tired mother who had done what any mother would do. Or maybe that was the point. Maybe that was what the Vraxi did not understand. Maybe that was what made humans special. Not their technology, not their weapons, not their strength, their love. A love so powerful that it could make a worn-out, exhausted, terrified woman stand up against the greatest predator in the galaxy. A love that could not be measured or calculated or understood by species who had never felt it. A love that said, simply and absolutely, not my children. Not ever. Not while I still breathed. Linda closed her eyes and let sleep take her. Tomorrow she would start her long recovery. Tomorrow she would begin the slow process of putting her body back together. Tomorrow she would face a galaxy that now looked at humanity with new eyes. But tonight, she was just a mother who protected her children. And that was enough.